The chandeliers of the Grand Eco Hotel glittered like captured stars. Lagos elite gathered beneath them, their laughter bouncing off gold-tipped columns and marble floors polished so brightly they reflected every diamond-studded shoe that crossed them. Amara Bello, 37, oil magnate, and the youngest female billionaire in West Africa, stood at the center of it all. Cameras flashed as she raised her crystal flute. Tonight wasn't just a gala, it was her victory. Tomorrow morning, she would finalize the Seagate deal, a multi-billion-dollar pipeline contract that would cement her company as the unrivaled power player in West Africa. The string quartet softened. Waiters froze mid-step. Dozens of eyes turned to her. Amara's gold gown shimmered under the lights as she smiled, poised and flawless. "To new beginnings," she began, her voice smooth but commanding, "to a future we will build together." She lifted her glass higher. The sound sliced through the ballroom. At first, some thought it was a champagne cork. But the glass in Amara's hand exploded, wine spraying across her gown like blood. Gus screamed. The string quartet's bow screeched a discordant note. Guards rushed forward. Amara's body jerked, her pulse spiking. Her ears rang. She glanced down at her hand. Shards glittered in her palm. She wasn't shot. Her glass had taken the hit. Another pop. This one whistled past her ear and embedded in the column behind her. Gunfire. Chaos erupted. Men in tuxedos dove beneath tables. Women in sequined gowns shrieked, clutching pearls and heels. Security scrambled, their radios crackling with desperate codes. And then, an arm yanked Amara down hard, slamming her behind the dessert table. Her breath caught as she locked eyes with her rescuer. It wasn't one of her bodyguards. It was the janitor. He wore a faded blue uniform, bleach stains marking the fabric, the faint stench of cleaning fluid clinging to him. His cap shadowed his face, but his eyes, dark, unflinching, met hers. "Stay down," he whispered, voice sharp but steady. Amara froze. Adrenaline surged through her veins. Her guards barked orders, sweeping the balcony and upper tiers, but none had been close enough to pull her down in time. Another shot cracked, the bullet ripping into a champagne tower. Crystal rained down in a glittering storm. The janitor crouched lower, pulling her with him. His hand was rough, calloused, but his grip was firm. "We have to move," he said, his tone carrying command, not request. Amara hissed, "Who are you?" No answer. Only a glance at the mezzanine where shadows shifted. He knew where the shooter was. He dragged her toward the kitchen doors, weaving through overturned chairs and panicked guests. Amara stumbled in her heels, her gold gown tangling at her ankles. Still, the janitor moved with uncanny precision, as if he'd rehearsed this escape route 100 times. Her mind raced. Could he be working with them? Was this a setup? The kitchen doors burst open. Steam and the aroma of roasted lamb spilled out. Cooks scattered, knives clattering onto tiled floors. "Through here," he ordered, ushering her into the stainless steel maze. Amara pulled back. Her guards weren't with her. They were outside, fanning through the ballroom, searching for the shooter. Yet here she was, alone, with a stranger in a janitor's uniform. "You expect me to trust you?" she demanded, breath ragged. He finally looked at her, really looked. His jaw was tight, his expression unreadable. But his eyes held something she hadn't seen in years. Not fear. Not greed. Urgency. "You're already alive because of me," he said flatly. Before she could reply, the kitchen window shattered. Another bullet whistled past, shattering a stack of plates inches from her head. The janitor shoved her into a narrow hallway. They ran past crates of vegetables, past startled dishwashers, past a swinging door that led into the loading bay. Amara's chest heaved. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst through her ribs. When they finally stopped, pressed against a cold steel wall, she demanded again, "Who the hell are you?" The man pulled a small earpiece from his pocket. Not standard issue for hotel janitors. He slipped it in, listening to static for a moment, then muttered, "They're not done. They'll circle around." Amara's throat went dry. He wasn't a janitor. Not even close. "You knew this was coming," she whispered, realization dawning. His gaze flicked back to her. For a split second, silence hung heavy between them. Then he said, voice low and grave, "You're not being targeted because of who you are. You're being targeted because of what you're about to sign." Amara's skin prickled. The Seagate deal. Before she could question further, a voice shouted from behind them. One of her guards burst into the hallway, gun raised. Relief flooded her chest. "Madam," the guard barked. "Step away from him." Amara's knees nearly buckled. Her security detail had found her. Finally. But then, her relief curdled into horror. The guard's aim shifted, not at the janitor. At her. Amara is caught between a mysterious stranger who claims to be saving her and her own trusted guard pointing a gun at her chest. The muzzle of the pistol glared at her like a cold, unblinking eye. "Step away, madam," the guard barked. His voice, once her shield, now rang with betrayal. Amara froze, her pulse hammering in her throat. This man, Olamide, her chief of security, had been with her for 6 years. He'd guarded her son's school runs, her late-night board meetings, even her father's funeral. And now, in the narrow kitchen corridor, his gun was aimed at her chest. The janitor moved slightly, shifting his body to shield her. "Careful," he said, his voice low, steady. "You fire here, and you'll have more than one corpse to explain." Olamide's eyes narrowed. "You don't understand, madam. This man, he's not who you think. He's dangerous." Amara's breath came fast and shallow. The irony cut sharp. Wasn't that exactly what she had thought a moment ago? That this so-called janitor was the real threat? And yet, it was Olamide's finger that now pressed against the trigger. She lifted her hands slightly. "Olamide, talk to me. Why are you doing this?" His jaw tightened. "Orders. Higher than you, madam. Higher than anything." The janitor's tone sharpened. "They've bought him. He's not your protector anymore. He's their doorway to you." Amara's mind spun. The men who wanted her dead, the rivals threatened by her Seagate deal, had infiltrated her most trusted circle. Her own guard. The kitchen lights flickered overhead, buzzing faintly. Somewhere, pots clattered as frightened staff scurried further into the hotel's shadows. The world shrank to 3 figures: Amara, the traitor with the gun, and the janitor who wasn't a janitor at all. "Put it down, Olamide," she whispered. "Don't do this." His eyes flickered, just for a heartbeat. Then they hardened. "This isn't personal." But before his finger could tighten on the trigger, the janitor moved. A blur of motion. He slammed the steel tray cart beside him, sending it crashing into Olamide's arm. The gunshot roared, deafening in the narrow hall, but the bullet only tore through the ceiling tiles. Amara screamed, dropping to the floor. The janitor lunged, wrestling Olamide into the wall. Fists and elbows collided with sickening thuds. The gun clattered across the floor, spinning toward Amara. For a split second, time slowed. The gun. Inches from her heels. Her guards had trained her to stay out of danger, never to touch a weapon. But tonight, nothing was normal. Tonight, even her guards were enemies. Her trembling hand reached down. Fingers closed around cold steel. Olamide snarled, shoving the janitor hard against the wall. "You're making a mistake, madam. You don't know who this man is." The janitor twisted, slamming his shoulder into Olamide's chest. "And you do," he shot back. The fight raged, brutal and desperate. Amara's chest rose and fell in sharp gasps. The weight of the gun seemed heavier than her entire empire. Finally, the janitor drove his knee into Olamide's stomach. The guard crumpled, groaning, clutching his ribs. The janitor snatched the pistol from Amara's trembling hands and pressed it against Olamide's temple. Silence fell, broken only by Amara's ragged breaths. "Don't kill him," she whispered. The janitor's jaw tightened. His finger hovered over the trigger. For a long, tense moment, his expression was unreadable. Then, with a sharp breath, he shoved the weapon into his own waistband instead. "Too quick for him," he muttered. "He'll live to answer questions." Olamide coughed, spitting blood, glaring up at Amara. "You'll regret this. They'll come again. And next time," his lips curled into a grim smile, "your money won't save you." The janitor silenced him with a swift kick, leaving him groaning on the tiles. Amara pressed her back against the wall, sliding down until she sat on the cold floor. Her hands trembled violently. The shattered glass from the ballroom, the gunshots, Olamide's betrayal, it all crashed into her at once. "Who are you?" she whispered, staring at the stranger. The man finally crouched beside her, his gaze intense but calm. "My name isn't important," he said. "What matters is this: you're alive because I was watching. And you'll stay alive if you start listening." Amara blinked, her mind racing. "Watching me? Why?" He didn't flinch. "Because I used to work for the men who want you dead. I know how they move, how they think. And I know they don't stop until the job is finished." Her breath caught. His words weren't wild guesses. They were delivered with the certainty of a man who had walked among wolves. "You're lying," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. "Then explain how I knew to pull you down before the first bullet struck." His eyes bored into hers. "Explain how your chief of security was already bought." The weight of his words pressed down on her like iron. He continued, quieter now, each word measured. "The Seagate deal. That's why you're a target. If you sign tomorrow, you'll own the lifeblood of half this region. They can't afford that. So they'd rather see you in the ground than at that table." Amara's skin prickled. Her empire, her future, her very life, suddenly all of it hung by a thread. "And what do you want from me?" she asked, voice trembling. The janitor's gaze flicked toward the door. The sound of approaching boots echoed faintly. Hotel security, or something worse, she couldn't be sure. "I want you to live," he said simply. Before she could reply, the door burst open. More guards flooded in, weapons raised. Their leader barked, "Madam, step away from him." Amara's heart thudded. Once again, guns aimed in her direction. And once again, she was trapped between loyalty and betrayal, truth and lies. Her eyes darted from the janitor, this mysterious man who'd saved her life and revealed too much, to the guards, men she paid millions to protect her. Her throat tightened. Who was she supposed to believe? The janitor leaned closer, his whisper barely audible above the chaos. "If you go with them, you're dead before sunrise." Amara must decide in seconds: follow her expensive, armed guards, or trust the stranger who claims to know her enemies better than anyone. The corridor pulsed with tension. Boots thundered. Shouts echoed. The guards closed in, guns raised, faces hard with urgency. Amara's heart raced. Her body screamed at her to run, but her mind locked in paralysis. The janitor stood tall beside her, his posture deceptively calm, though his hand hovered near the gun tucked into his waistband. "Madam," one of the guards barked again. "Step away from that man. He's a threat." Her breath hitched. These were her men. Paid, trained, trusted. Yet the image of Olamide, her most loyal protector, aiming his weapon at her only moments ago still burned in her mind. The janitor leaned slightly toward her, his voice low and urgent. "They're not here to save you. Not all of them." The guards fanned out, forming a semicircle. Their leader's eyes flicked to the janitor, narrowing with suspicion. "On your knees. Hands where I can see them." For a second, Amara thought he might obey. Instead, he spoke without flinching. "If you trusted your guards, madam, you'd already be dead. Choose carefully." The air crackled with danger. Amara swallowed hard. "Lower your weapons," she commanded, summoning the steel of her boardroom voice. The guards hesitated, glancing between themselves. The janitor tensed, his gaze fixed on one in particular, a tall man with a scar carved across his jaw. And then it happened. The scarred guard's gun swung, not toward the janitor, but toward Amara. Time fractured. The janitor lunged, shoving Amara aside as the shot rang out. The bullet tore through the space she'd just vacated, shattering a row of wine bottles stacked against the wall. Red liquid sprayed across the tiles like blood. "Traitor!" one of the other guards roared, turning his weapon on the scarred man. Chaos erupted. Gunfire thundered, deafening in the confined hall. Cooks screamed, ducking under counters. Pots and pans crashed to the floor in a metallic symphony of panic. The janitor pulled Amara to the ground, shielding her with his body as bullets whistled overhead. His grip on her wrist was iron, steady, anchoring her in the storm. "This way," he shouted, dragging her toward the loading bay door. Amara's heels slipped on spilled wine, her gown snagging against jagged glass. She barely registered the sting of cuts across her arms as adrenaline surged, pushing her forward. They burst into the loading bay, the cool night air hitting her like a slap. Trucks idled in the shadows, their engines humming faintly. The industrial space smelled of oil, rubber, and the metallic tang of danger. Behind them, the firefight raged on. Shouts, gunshots, betrayal unveiled in every echo. The janitor pushed her behind a stack of crates. His chest heaved, but his eyes stayed sharp, scanning every corner. "You see now?" he demanded, voice edged with urgency. "They're inside your circle. Bought and paid for." Amara trembled, pressing a hand against her temple. "But why me?" "Because tomorrow, with one signature, you change the balance of power in this country," he replied. "And men who profit from chaos don't like balance." She stared at him, the words sinking like stones. She had fought rivals in boardrooms, battled lawsuits, endured smear campaigns. But this was war. Before she could respond, the bay door screeched open. Headlights flooded the space, blinding them. A black SUV screeched to a halt. Figures in dark clothing spilled out, their movements sharp, coordinated, professional. Not bodyguards. Killers. Amara's stomach dropped. The janitor's jaw tightened. They sent a second team. Gunfire erupted again, bullets sparking against metal and concrete. The janitor shoved Amara flat, drawing the pistol from his waistband. He fired back with deadly precision, every shot measured. But there were too many. "Stay low," he ordered, shifting positions, using the crates as cover. His movements weren't clumsy, not like a janitor who'd picked up a gun for the first time. No, he fought like a man trained, practiced, dangerous. Amara's fear twisted into realization. He wasn't just some stranger who happened to be nearby. He was something more. Something darker. "Who are you?" she shouted over the chaos. He ducked a bullet, reloaded with practiced ease, and glanced at her. A man who walked away from them. A man they want erased as much as they want you dead. The words hit her harder than the gunfire. This wasn't chance. He wasn't just her rescuer. He was part of the very machine that hunted her. Before she could react, flashing red and blue lights cut through the night. Sirens wailed. Police vehicles stormed into the bay, tires screeching. Officers spilled out, shouting commands, weapons raised. The killers scattered, firing as they retreated into the shadows. The janitor grabbed Amara's hand, pulling her toward the cover of a truck. But then, he stopped. The police were closing in, their rifles aimed at anything that moved. If they found him with her, they'd never listen to his story. They'd see only a blood-stained man with a gun, standing beside a billionaire. He met her eyes, urgent. "If they ask, you don't know me." "Not yet." Her lips parted. "Wait." But he was already gone. Slipping into the shadows, disappearing as silently as he'd appeared. Amara stumbled toward the officers, her gown torn, her hands trembling, her ears still ringing with gunfire. "Madame Bello, you're safe now," the commander assured her, guiding her toward a waiting vehicle. But she barely heard him. Her eyes scanned the darkness, searching for a silhouette in a faded uniform. The janitor. The man who wasn't a janitor at all. And though he had vanished, his warning clung to her like a curse. "They won't stop until you're dead." Amara has survived the gala, but her trust is shattered, her circle infiltrated, and the only man who truly saved her has disappeared into the night. The mansion was too quiet. Banana Island's high walls and iron gates had always been her sanctuary. Tonight, they felt like a cage. Guards paced the perimeter, rifles slung across their shoulders, radios crackling with coded chatter. Floodlights bathed the compound in a cold, sterile glow. Amara Bello sat alone in her living room, her gold gown torn, her hands trembling as she clutched a glass of water she could barely drink. Her son was away at boarding school in England. Thank God. If he had been here tonight, her throat tightened. She forced the thought away. On the coffee table before her lay a small object the police had retrieved from the hotel loading bay. A janitor's mop bucket. At first, she had dismissed it as trash. But tucked inside, folded once and pressed beneath a rag, was a note scrawled in hurried handwriting on hotel stationery. You can sign your contract. But know this, they'll try again. Her hand shook as she read it for the 5th time. He had left it for her. The stranger. The man who had saved her life twice, then vanished like smoke. She pressed the note flat against the table, staring at the uneven letters. Every stroke carried urgency, a warning she could not ignore. Her guards insisted she rest, that the police were handling it. But how could she rest when betrayal lived inside her own walls? Olamide had turned. The scarred guard had aimed for her heart. How many more had been bought? Every time a walkie-talkie crackled, she flinched. Every time a shadow passed the window, her chest clenched. She had survived the gala. But was she safe now? Not while she didn't know who to trust. Her thoughts spiraled back to the stranger. His sharp reflexes. His flawless aim. The way he moved through danger like he'd lived there all his life. He wasn't a janitor. He wasn't even pretending well. So who was he? A knock at the door jolted her upright. "Madam," a guard called softly. "The DPO is here. He wishes to speak with you." She exhaled, trying to steady herself. The divisional police officer. Perhaps answers at last. He entered with stiff politeness, his uniform immaculate, his face lined with concern. "Madam Bello, we caught one of the shooters." He refused to speak. Then, he hesitated. He swallowed poison before interrogation. Amara's blood ran cold. Poison? The DPO nodded grimly. This was no ordinary hit squad. Someone powerful wants you gone. They are trained, disciplined, and willing to die for silence. Her hand tightened on the glass until it cracked in her palm. She hardly felt the sting. The DPO noticed the note on the table. And this? She hesitated. Her instinct screamed to keep it secret. But her voice betrayed her. It was left by someone. Someone. She swallowed. A man who pulled me out of the line of fire. Twice. The DPO's brow furrowed. A bodyguard? No, she whispered. Not a bodyguard. Not even hotel staff, I think. He just appeared. Knew where the bullets were coming from. Knew about the betrayal. The officer's eyes narrowed. And you trusted him? Did she? Her fingers brushed the note again. Against all reasons. She had. The DPO leaned forward. Madam, men like that don't appear by chance. If he knew so much, perhaps he was part of it. Amara's heart twisted. The thought cut deep, but she couldn't shake it. Could the stranger himself be leading her into a deeper trap? Before she could answer, a commotion erupted outside. Shouts. Boots pounding against marble. The DPO's radio crackled with frantic voices. Southgate. Breach. Armed hostiles incoming. Gunfire split the night. Short, sharp bursts. Amara's pulse spiked. Her guards scrambled, taking positions, shouting commands. Stay here, the DPO barked, drawing his pistol. But even as he spoke, Amara's body screamed with certainty. She was the target. They weren't storming her mansion for her guards. They were storming for her. Another round of shots. The heavy groan of the iron gate giving way. Amara's breath came fast and shallow. Images of Olamide's betrayal flashed in her mind. Could she trust her guards now? Or was this another setup? A shadow moved across the balcony window. A masked figure, rifle raised. Her chest constricted. She grabbed the note with trembling fingers, clutching it like a lifeline. The stranger's warning rang in her ears. They'll try again. The balcony door shattered inward. Amara screamed. The night she thought she had survived had only just begun. Amara's home, her last refuge, is under siege. Betrayal surrounds her. The only man who seemed to truly protect her is gone, yet his warning hangs heavy in her hand. The air filled with smoke, gunfire, and the piercing shrieks of walkie-talkies. Amara's mansion, her fortress, was crumbling into chaos. Masked men stormed through the gates, rifles flashing in the glare of floodlights. Guards returned fire, but Amara's stomach sank with dread. She'd seen this precision before. This wasn't a reckless gang. This was a strike team, disciplined, ruthless, and bought for a single purpose: to erase her. "Madam, down!" the DPO shouted, dragging her behind the sofa as glass exploded overhead. Shards rained down, catching in her hair. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She thought of her son in England. Thought of how close she'd come to leaving him motherless tonight. Another masked man burst into the living room. His gun swept the room like a blade. And then, crack, a single shot rang out from the shadows. The intruder crumpled, his rifle clattering against marble. Amara's breath caught. That shot hadn't come from her guards. It came from behind. She turned, and there he was. The janitor. His uniform was gone. He wore a dark jacket now, his face shadowed, his eyes blazing with focus. He moved with the confidence of a man who had stepped into enemy territory too many times to count. "Get up," he barked, yanking Amara to her feet. "We're leaving. Now." The DPO bristled. "Who are you? You can't just." The stranger silenced him with a glare sharp enough to cut. "Keep your men shooting. They'll follow us out." He pulled Amara through the chaos, weaving between columns and shattered glass. Bullets sparked off the walls. Her gown snagged against splintered wood. "Why are you here?" she gasped, stumbling after him. His jaw tightened. "Because I told you, they wouldn't stop." They reached the servants' exit, slipping into the humid Lagos night. The alley behind the mansion reeked of smoke and gunpowder. A vehicle waited, an old pickup, engine idling, lights off. The stranger shoved her inside and slid behind the wheel. Tires screeched as they shot into the narrow street. Amara clutched the dashboard, her breath ragged. "Tell me the truth. Who are you?" For a moment, silence hung heavy between them, broken only by the roar of the engine. Then he spoke. "My name is Daniel. I used to be like them." Amara's chest tightened. "An assassin?" His eyes flicked to the mirror, scanning the road. "Not exactly. I was corporate security, black ops. Companies like yours hire men like me to protect their secrets, or bury others." Her stomach turned. "You worked for the people trying to kill me?" Daniel nodded once, his face grim. "Until I saw what they really were. I walked away. That made me a liability. And now, they want me erased almost as much as they want you." Her hands trembled. This man, this stranger who had saved her, carried the same darkness as those trying to end her life. "Why save me then?" she whispered. He glanced at her, his eyes fierce. "Because I've watched them destroy too many people. I won't let them do it again. Not to you." The sincerity in his tone hit her harder than the bullets. For the first time that night, she felt a flicker of something she thought she'd lost forever: hope. But it was short-lived. Headlights flared in the rearview mirror. Black SUVs. Then three. "They're tailing us," Amara whispered. Daniel's hands tightened on the wheel. "Then we end this tonight." He swerved sharply, cutting into a deserted road that led toward the docks. The stench of saltwater and rust thickened in the air. "Why here?" she asked. "Because it's open ground. And they don't know they're not the only ones hunting tonight." Before she could question, police sirens wailed in the distance. Blue lights flickered faintly, closing in. Daniel skidded to a halt in front of an abandoned warehouse. "Stay low," he ordered, stepping out with the pistol steady in his grip. The SUVs screeched to a stop. Masked men poured out, guns raised, moving like a pack of wolves. At their center stood a figure Amara recognized instantly. Olamide. Her once trusted head of security, his betrayal now complete. His sneer cut through the night. "Madame Bello. I warned you. No contract is worth your life." Amara's heart twisted. "How much did they pay you?" Olamide chuckled darkly. "Enough to forget loyalty. Enough to make your death look inevitable." Daniel stepped forward, his gun unwavering. "You should have stayed in the shadows." Olamide sneered. "You're a ghost, Daniel. Everyone knows it. Tonight I finish the job." Before he could fire, floodlights blazed. Dozens of police surged from hidden positions, rifles trained. "Drop your weapons," the DPO thundered. Chaos erupted. Gunfire roared, men scattered, muzzle flashes lit the night like lightning. Daniel lunged at Olamide, tackling him into the dust. The two men wrestled savagely, fists slamming, boots scraping. "You betrayed her!" Daniel roared, pinning him. Olamide spat blood. "She was just another rich fool. You think loyalty buys bread? Men like me take what we can." Daniel's fist cracked against his jaw, knocking him cold. The battle raged, but within minutes the assassins were cuffed, dragged to police vans. The night fell eerily quiet, broken only by the lap of waves against the dock. Amara stood trembling, her gown torn, her empire shaken. Yet she was alive. Daniel approached, bloodied but steady. "It's over. For now." Her throat tightened. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't owe me thanks," he said softly. "Just don't forget me." She stared at him, seeing not a janitor, not a killer, but a man who had chosen redemption over silence. "I won't," she whispered. Days later, the Seagate deal was signed. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. The world saw a woman unbroken by assassination attempts. But behind the glamour, her thoughts drifted back to Daniel. The man who had slapped her back to life, not with his hand, but with his courage. She searched for him under bridges, at old safe houses. But Daniel was gone, vanished like a shadow at dawn. Only his note remained. "They'll try again." And Amara knew, deep in her bones, that her story with the stranger wasn't finished. Not yet. The truth is revealed. Daniel was once part of the machine trying to kill her. He redeems himself by saving Amara and exposing betrayal, but vanishes into the night, leaving the door wide open for a sequel.